By the mid-1800s, the honeybees that were introduced in 1822 have become established throughout much of Australia. They interact with Australia's natural environment because they collect nectar, pollen and propolis from many native plants. Some people are concerned about the effect honeybees may have on our native insects, plants and animals.
In the case of migratory, commercially managed honeybees, there is no evidence of fact on which to support a hypothesis that bees are having an adverse effect on our native plants or animals. Compelling evidence that the practice of commercial migratory beekeeping is compatible with the objects of nature conservation. Both the flora from the native plants and flora from elsewhere have varying concentrations, varying levels of concentrations of sucrose in the nectar. When the sucrose concentration in nectar falls below a certain level, it becomes unattractive to honeybees to gather. And we find that with, say, some of our eucalypts in the wintertime, some of our banksias in the wintertime, other flora in the wintertime, for example, have sugar concentrations that are quite low, below 8% in fact, which is the threshold of attractiveness for honeybees. And even though that sugar concentration is low, it is still attractive to native fauna.
Feral honeybees establish nests in tree cavities, and this is of concern to some conservationists.
Well, the regent parrot is a highly endangered bird in New South Wales and Victoria, and there was the thought that the bees' nesting places might be the same as where the parrots nested, and therefore one of the processes that was sending the birds into decline might be the bees nesting in the same holes as the parrots would. There's definitely a lot of bees down living in that area. I'm talking about the area in Wyperfeld National Park, just south of Mildura. We found about 70 to 150 colonies per square kilometre, which is a lot. However, we also found about 2,000 hollows per square kilometre, and only 2% of those were occupied by bees. So, although there's a lot of bees there, there's also a lot of holes left for parrots. We also found that a number of the holes that were occupied by bees could not be occupied by parrots, so perhaps the pressure from bees is not as great as some people have feared. Some of the holes which the bees were living in were only about that big, the entrance hole, and the parrot can't get through that hole.
The native bees and the honeybees in this log have actually been here at Taronga Zoo Education Centre for about 3 years. We actually got them because we have a sleepover program here at the zoo for children, and one of the parents who stayed one night with his son actually suggested that we could get this tree because it had actually been on a freeway that was going to be demolished, and they wanted to save the tree because this was such an unusual thing, seeing native bees and honeybees so close together. So they suggested that we could have it here at the zoo, and it's been absolutely brilliant in terms of teaching children about native bees and about honeybees and cooperation within the ecosystem.
The Australian apiary industry is heavily dependent on public lands managed by governments.
Access to our native forests on public lands and on freehold lands is critical to the production of honey, to the maintenance of significant honeybee populations to do that job. But it is becoming even more and more significant today that those same populations that are built up through the migration of apiaries through our freehold and public lands of Australia, becoming increasingly important that it is from these populations that is drawn the honeybee crop pollination resource for our agricultural and horticultural industries.
All the different wildflowers we have in Australia, what a diverse range of their shapes and the flower sizes and colours. And we have 2,000 species of native bees, which are important pollinators of our wildflowers. And so it's important to have tiny bees to go for the tiny flowers and huge bees to go for the flowers that need the pollen to be shaken out and to be vigorously vibrated to get the pollen out of the flowers. So it's important that we maintain the diversity of our native bees so that our beautiful wildflowers that we value so much are pollinated properly.
Most people are unaware of other products which are generated by the honeybee's activities. Beeswax is secreted by the wax glands in the abdomen of the adult worker bee. Beekeepers collect the beeswax and melt it to make blocks. Beeswax is used to make candles, cosmetics, furniture polish and leather dressing. It's also used to produce foundation sheets on which bees build new honeycomb.
Well, the beeswax in candles has an advantage that it doesn't have that nasty smell that sometimes comes with other candles, and it's quite a nice aroma. They don't droop in hot weather because it has a high melting point. They don't tend to droop, which some other candles will do. It does tend to burn a bit longer than, let's say, paraffin candles. The main advantage of using beeswax in cosmetics is that it's a nice natural product and it's quite good for the skin. It's a very old product. It's been used for about 2,000 years in cosmetics. The cold cream produced by the Romans were using beeswax and olive oil, and that's basically the recipe we still use. We also use beeswax in lip salve for the same sort of reasons, and we also use it in soap for the same reason. So it's a nice, smooth, pleasant product to use. We use beeswax as well in our furniture cream and in our leather cream. In the furniture cream, of course, it's been used for a long time. It's one of the first finishes ever used on timber, with that and or with linseed oil. We do use it with linseed oil, and that goes back well before French polishing. In leather, it's used with an animal fat. The beeswax results in it being waterproofing. It's a waterproofing agent there.
Propolis comes pretty much from straight from the hive. It is either dissolved up in alcohol into a tincture. For people that don't like the alcohol or have some reason for not wanting to use alcohol, it's other substances are used to dissolve it up. It is also incorporated into soaps and toothpastes and other cosmetics.
Royal jelly is a milky white substance secreted from the glands in the heads of young worker bees. It's used to feed developing larvae. Some people use royal jelly as an alternative medicine.
Principally royal jelly, the most complete form is the natural liquid royal jelly as it's taken from the hive, because in that form it has all of the available nutrients and none are lost through any other type of processing. In that form, the royal jelly is made into teas, or it is spread on toast or crumpets. Young people often like to take it in yoghurt.
Pollen is collected by worker honeybees from the anther of flowers. Beekeepers place traps on hives to collect pollen. Pollen is high in protein and is used as a food for humans, and can also be fed to bee hives when protein is low in supply to bees in the field. Bee venom is produced by the venom gland in the worker and queen bee. It's stored in the venom reservoir and is the fluid injected by bees when they sting. The major use of bee venom has been the desensitization of people allergic or highly sensitive to bee stings. It's been used for research to fight malignant cancer cells and to treat rheumatic diseases such as arthritis.